There's this crazy theory about the origin of Christopher Nolan's Joker that will change how you watch every scene he's in, and it starts with a question The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises never answered. What happened to the people in the Narrows after the toxin went airborne? Because we don't get to see an antidote distribution after Batman saves the day in Batman Begins. And we don't really know what might have happened to that entire neighborhood that was quarantined. The theory says that one of the Narrows survivors that night was the Joker, and what Crane's compound did to his brain is exactly why he behaves the way he does. Don't worry, I'll explain the whole theory in a few minutes. It all starts with the ending of Batman Begins. As you may remember, in the end of the first movie, the train blows up and Ra's al Ghul goes down with it. Gordon and Batman share a moment on the rooftop. The city is saved, roll credits. Except, it wasn't saved. Not completely. And the film actually tells you this. Right there in those last few scenes. Gordon looks at Batman and says,
"The Narrows is lost."
Matter of fact, a whole neighborhood, gone. And then, a few minutes later, same rooftop, he pulls out a playing card. Joker card. Then Gordon tells Batman,
"Armed robbery, double homicide. Got a taste for the theatrical like you."
Batman says he'll look into it. The movie ends, 1 year passes, The Dark Knight begins. And there he is. A guy in face paint who walks into a room full of mob bosses, murders one of them with a pencil, and doesn't so much as blink when he threatens to blow the entire room up with a coat full of grenades. Nobody ever connected those two moments. Not in any serious way. But once you sit with it, the connection becomes hard to ignore. Because the question everyone glosses over is simple. Where did the Joker come from? And the answer the Nolan trilogy quietly sets up is right there, in the water mains running underneath the Narrows. Let's talk about what Crane's toxin actually does. And then, let's talk about what happens when it doesn't fully let go. Jonathan Crane built something genuinely disturbing. The compound he developed, derived from the organic material in those blue flowers from the mountains of Bhutan, attacks the brain at a chemical level. It hammers the part of the brain responsible for processing fear. The result isn't just being scared. It's your threat detection system going into complete overdrive and producing hallucinations so intense that people become violent, catatonic, or both. The film gives you this piece by piece. Lucius Fox figures out early on. That's why it works as a gas. That's why Ra's al Ghul needed the microwave emitter. And that delivery mechanism matters. A gas cloud over a densely packed urban neighborhood is not a syringe. It is not a precision instrument. Think about what the Narrows actually is in this film. It's an island district, described as the worst part of Gotham, full of old buildings, crowded streets, and the kind of population that doesn't have anywhere else to go. Arkham Asylum is right there. The district is already on the edge before any of this happens. When the microwave emitter fires up and vaporizes the water mains, Crane's toxin goes airborne across the whole neighborhood. The film shows people screaming in the streets, tearing the district to pieces under the influence of the gas. Batman himself already went through a version of this. Earlier in the film, while investigating Crane in an apartment block in the Narrows, he gets sprayed directly in the face. He tries to fight through it and can't. The hallucinations hit immediately and completely. Batman, barely functioning, escapes through a window, reaches the rooftop, and calls Alfred. Alfred has to physically drive in and get him out. Bruce is unconscious in Wayne Manor for 2 days. That's a controlled dose administered directly to one person who had immediate medical attention and 2 full days of recovery. Now, picture the same compound, vaporized wholesale, into the water mains of a densely packed urban neighborhood, with no controlled dosage, no individual treatment, and no way to reach everyone in time. Here's the thing the film never addresses. What happened to the people who got too little? What happened to the ones exposed for longer than anyone else? What happened to the guy who was standing in the wrong spot when the gas came through and didn't get the antidote until an hour later, maybe longer? The film acknowledges there's a window. Batman warns Gordon,
"I need to get her the antidote before the damage becomes permanent."
The Narrows had thousands of people in it. The antidote was never sprayed from the air. Batman gave Rachel 2 vials to deliver to Gordon, one for Gordon to inoculate himself before entering the chaos, and one intended for mass production. Whether that second vial ever made it to a lab in time to help anyone in the Narrows is something the film never addresses. The rest of the neighborhood was simply quarantined by raising the bridges, cutting it off, and leaving it to burn through the gas on its own. Some people got no treatment at all. Some were inside buildings, deep into the hallucinations. The math on that is not great, and the Narrows is lost. That's what Gordon says right at the end, when they've stopped Ra's al Ghul. That's the film admitting the cleanup didn't reach everyone. That whatever happened there, happened, and then they moved on. Here's where things gets interesting. The toxin floods the amygdala with fear stimulus. The amygdala is the part of the brain that processes threat, generates the fear response, and sends the alarm signals that make you freeze, run, or fight. Crane's compound doesn't just trigger it, it maxes it out. It sends it into overdrive where it can't distinguish between real danger and nothing, and treats everything as catastrophic. The body has a system for managing repeated overwhelming stimulus called desensitization. Push a nerve hard enough, often enough, with no resolution, and it starts to go quiet. The signal stops arriving clearly. If someone in the Narrows was exposed to a high enough dose for long enough, and then received a partial or delayed antidote, the fear circuit wouldn't just be overwhelmed, it would start to shut down. Not completely, not in a way that looks like damage from the outside, but internally, the amygdala's threat response architecture would be rewired. Fear wouldn't arrive cleanly anymore. The signal would come through distorted, muted, or not at all. And what does a person without a functioning fear response look like? They don't startle. They don't flinch when something dangerous happens. What would be terrifying to you, standing in a room full of armed criminals, registers to them as something close to neutral, maybe even amusing. Watch the Joker in The Dark Knight with that in mind. He walks into the meeting with the mob bosses without hesitation. He does the pencil trick and finds the result funny. He sits across from Batman in an interrogation room, gets thrown against the wall, and laughs. He blows up a hospital, walks out while the building collapses behind him, and when the detonator finally works after a brief delay, he reacts with a theatrical startle before escaping on the school bus. While his behavior in face-to-face confrontation shows a striking lack of fear, he still reacts physically to massive explosions. But overall, something is genuinely broken in how that man processes physical danger. The standard reading is that the Joker is crazy, a nihilist, a brilliant criminal who has trained himself out of fear. Some of that might be true, but that doesn't explain the physical behavior, which is consistent across every scene, in situations where even a highly trained person would have involuntary responses. His face, his posture, his breathing, his vocal cadence, all of it stays level. That's not personality, that's altered biology. So here's the theory, laid out as plainly as possible. Someone was in the Narrows the night the Toxin went airborne. Someone already, let's say, not doing great, criminally connected, mentally fragile in some way that hadn't fully surfaced yet, or just unlucky enough to be in the wrong building when the gas came through the vents. This person gets hit hard enough that the hallucinations are severe, not hard enough to become a screaming wreck permanently. They're in that middle zone. The antidote arrives eventually, but not fully or not fast enough for that level of exposure. What the compound did to the amygdala doesn't fully reverse. The fear circuit was pushed so far into overdrive that it burned out on the way back down. The brain compensates. It rewires. And those new pathways don't carry fear the way the old ones did. A stimulus that used to say danger run now arrives and gets processed through rewired circuitry. And for someone with the right underlying personality, someone already prone to seeing violence as transactional or theatrical, that rewired signal might arrive as excitement, as dark humor, as the sense that chaos is interesting rather than threatening. Give that person a year to adapt to their new neurological state, a year to figure out that they can walk into dangerous situations and stay calm while everyone around them falls apart. A year to realize that this is a kind of power and to start building an identity around it. Now you've got the Joker. Not a clown, not someone who fell into a vat of chemicals and came out laughing. Someone who had their threat response system chemically restructured by a compound designed specifically to overwhelm that system. In a neighborhood the film explicitly says was abandoned to its fate. The comics have been playing with versions of this for decades, and a few of them line up with this reading in ways that feel almost deliberate. Batman, the man who laughs, gives you the modern, definitive take on the Joker's origin. It depicts someone chemically altered into a state beyond conventional fear or reason. Brubaker wrote it as a response to the original Bill Finger stories, leaning into the idea that the chemical transformation wasn't just cosmetic. It restructured the person at a fundamental level. Batman, Lovers and Madmen, written by Michael Green in 2008, takes a different angle. It shows a version of the Joker origin where a criminal is altered by a single traumatic encounter into someone who finds violence exhilarating rather than dangerous. The trigger is different. The result is similar. The capacity for fear gets replaced by something else entirely. And then there's The Killing Joke from Alan Moore in 1988, which is still the most referenced version of this argument. Moore's theory is that the right combination of chemical, psychological, and environmental trigger, what he calls one bad day, can permanently rewire a person. His Joker goes through one catastrophic experience and comes out the other side as something fundamentally different from what he was before. The Nolan version kinda borrows from all three of these without explicitly committing to any of them. You never get a confirmed origin. You never see who the Joker was before. You get contradictory scar stories, which is its own form of answer, because someone whose past is that fragmented might genuinely not have access to a coherent memory of who they were. The neurological damage that blew out the fear circuit may have also disrupted the memory architecture around that period. That fits. The brain doesn't always store memories cleanly when trauma is involved. Someone who went through what the Narrows incident would have put them through might not have a clear account of it afterward. They might fill in the gaps with stories, different ones each time, all plausible, none of them true. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this. The first movie ends somewhere around the middle of the night. The police force is struggling to contain the chaos. Gordon also tells Batman,
We still haven't picked up Crane or half the inmates of Arkham that he freed.
The Dark Knight opens roughly 1 year later. The Joker is already operational. He's organized enough to plan and execute a bank robbery involving multiple people, each of whom he's set up to kill the others. He's got the mob's attention. He's earned enough of a reputation that when he walks into that meeting, they know who he is. That's a year of activity, a year of being the Joker in a functioning, coherent way, pulling jobs, building a name, developing a methodology. 1 year is exactly the right amount of time for someone who survived the Narrows incident with altered neurological function to adapt to their new baseline, figure out what they're capable of, and start working. And the fact that Gordon specifically mentions the escalation of Gotham's criminal world in that final Batman Begins scene, shortly before revealing the Joker card, is not an accident. Nolan is drawing a line. The conditions created in the Narrows are producing consequences that are only now becoming visible. Gordon didn't know it would be this specific. He didn't know it would be someone like this. But he knew something was coming. The Dark Knight doesn't mention the Narrows once. No news report, no background character bringing it up. Maybe Nolan decided it was a loose thread that didn't serve the next story, so he dropped it, which is partially true. Or the Narrows was left out of the Dark Knight, because the consequences of the Narrows are the Dark Knight. The person who was altered in that neighborhood, who started showing up in Gotham's criminal world, is the entire engine of the second film's plot. But the Joker in the Dark Knight isn't chaos for its own sake. He has a very specific philosophy. He tells Harvey Dent in that hospital room,
"The mob has plans. The cops have plans. Gordon's got plans. They're schemers. Schemers trying to control their little worlds. I'm not a schemer. I try to show the schemers how pathetic their attempts to control things really are."
That's the worldview of someone who went through something that stripped the world of its normal shape. The Killing Joke called it one bad day. But the Narrows wasn't just one bad day. It was a neurological event, a chemical restructuring of how they processed reality. And maybe that's why he tells different stories about the scars. Because the actual memory of what happened to him in the Narrows is fragmented, unstable, and inaccessible. Brain rewired itself around the damage. The memories of the event, of the hours before the gas and the hours during the rewiring, are part of what got caught in that restructuring. Gordon saw it coming, even if he didn't know what he was seeing. He wasn't predicting a criminal, he was predicting a consequence. And the consequence arrived right on schedule, roughly 1 year later, wearing face paint and carrying a philosophy built from the ruins of a neighborhood that nobody ever went back to fix.